Hello everybody, and welcome back to a new series of Learnin N Stuff.
Yeah, we can be playing Flower.
Heck yeah, we are. This is Monkey's favorite game
This is my favorite game.
of all time.
Yeah, it holds a very special place in my heart.
Yeah, it does. And now, for those of you who are new for us and don't know what we do on Learnin N Stuff, what we do is we'll go through the exegetical process and apply it to video games.
Yeah.
Hey Monkey,
Uh-huh.
what's the exegetical process?
Well, to keep it, like, it's got a lot of little intricacies, but to keep it, fairly straightforward, it starts with taking a look at the context, both of the author and, the context in whatever is being,
Played.
Yeah.
Alright, and what's the middle bit?
Then it goes to meaning, like the author's intent, like what's supposed to be conveyed.
Okay, and then finally we have application.
Yeah.
And obviously, application is the most self-explanatory one,
Yeah.
where it's how can we take what we've learned and apply it to our lives.
Yeah.
So today, for our first episode, well, not the first episode, the first one of Flower, we're going to be discussing the context of Flower.
Yeah.
And as we can tell from this, it's we saw the flower, he was on a windowsill, and, he was in a big old city.
Yeah.
He's a city flower.
But now we're over here and we're in, decidedly not the city.
No, this is far from the city. And what this would be is, this would be the flower's dream.
Oh.
So, the flower that was on the windowsill
Uh-huh.
was basically dreaming of what it would be like to sort of be in this open field and to be the wind.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah! I always thought that was really interesting.
Uh-huh.
That it's all from the perspective of different flowers, their dreams.
Right. Yeah.
And nobody really thinks of, what is a flower dream?
Right. Yeah, that's not something that comes up too often.
No. And this right now, we just got this really beautiful meadow. We're just floating along.
Right.
But, this being the show we're going to talk all about the spoilers.
Right. Yeah, we are not respecters of spoilers.
Not on this show. What happens basically with the context of this one is it starts out in this beautiful meadow. And you have to, it starts with, just game design wise, it starts with just like, hey, you press this, you go the wind, you go faster, you collect flowers, and a little wound pops up, and you're able to collect even more flowers.
Yeah.
And eventually we'll get to the point where, there's no grass, there's no flowers in an area, and it looks kind of dead.
It does look dead when there's no flowers or grass.
Exactly. And so you, as the magical windflower, get to revive life and color into this world. And I don't know if any of you live out in a city or have ever been to a really big city. There's not a whole lot of color in most big cities.
Yeah, not really. There tends to be a lot of, like, there's some color sometimes, but there's also an awful lot of gray and...
Exactly. It's very, like, uniform and not a whole lot of life there.
Right, it tends to feel kind of cold.
Exactly, and this is much more warm and welcoming and very open and loving.
Yeah.
And that's why flowers are awesome.
It really kind of is, and I think that's worth mentioning that, like, this is, like you said, a flower's dream.
Exactly.
Who's, like, in this gray, cold, city life, and then out here, there's something different about it. It's like this envisioning of, somewhere out there's a place where things aren't so cold, things aren't so gray, and in that sense, kind of lonely.
Exactly, and here, like, in the menu, we saw a flower, and then we saw another flower, and it's just like, it's a flower who's all by himself, and it's just the one lone flower, and now it's dreaming of being, surrounded by flowers, and you create this, like, beautiful tail of petals.
Yeah.
Where, again, everything's cold and it's colorful and bright. And, oh, it's so pretty.
Which is actually so. I hadn't actually heard about it being Flower's dream before.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a couple interviews where the guy who created it basically said he wanted a game where it was from the perspective of a flower.
Interesting.
But how could you do that? Because, well, it's a flower.
Right.
And the only way he could really do to, like, tell a story of a flower would be to do it through the flower's dreams. And I believe he had, like, since they live near Tokyo, one of the most congested cities in the world.
Right.
There's not a whole, like, Japan is probably one of the most open, high-functioning societies that really is open with nature.
Right.
It's not something that normally happens in most cities. They try to, like, conquer nature.
Right.
Japan is much more open with it, except for Tokyo, because they kind of have to be.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, they have a flower on a windowsill, and be like, well, you know, it has this whole idea of nature and, you know, urbanization of things and, like, industrializing the world.
Yes.
And how, you know, well, what would it be like to be a flower in a city? Like, what would they dream about? And what would their experience and thoughts of what it like to be a city flower through the world?
Yeah, and that... I mean... Yeah, that's something really, I think, worth noting, is that there is definitely a different perspective from someone, you know, living in the city, in this case a flower, versus a flower out in the countryside. Like, it's pretty different.
Exactly.
Even in a place as open with nature as Tokyo.
Exactly.
Or Japan.
Yeah, and then, I mean, like, even just with people. You take the city boy, and you put him in the country, you're gonna have a rough time.
Right.
And same thing with the country boy. You take him, you put him in a big old city. And it's gonna be confusing and scary, and, like, if you've never been to a big city, it's not the easiest thing to get around in.
Right. No, it's kind of confusing. It's kind of scary if, you know, if you're not really used to it.
Exactly. And I've never really been to big cities before. Like, I lived in upstate New York.
Okay.
Where it's not New York City.
Right.
It's the furthest thing from, like, we had cow farms.
Yeah, that's not New York City.
No. And so, like, even in Nebraska, it's like, yeah, like, it's a big city for them, but it's still Nebraska, so nothing's tall. It's all just flat and all around.
And even though this right here is a little hilly, I mean, it's not too dissimilar from this.
Exactly. Like, the Midwest is basically this.
Right.
Except more goldish.
Yes.
And less fun.
Right, that's true. Generally less lush than this.
Exactly. And a lot more boring.
Right. But there's definitely certain charm to it.
Exactly. And, like, when I moved out here and we went to Seattle for the first time, it was like, everything is so tall and confusing and none of this makes sense. And it's like, alright, I'm just going to drive down this road. Why is this a one-way road? I don't understand.
Right, like, where's this going? I'm so confused.
Exactly. It was just so confusing on why is this the way it is. And it's just like, well, I've never really been to a big city before.
Interesting. So I know another one of the developers on this game had pretty much lived almost his entire life in just one city in China.
Wow.
And never even had gone outside the city to see the countryside.
Ooh.
So for, I think it was business, he ended up flying out and going to America, and California specifically.
That's a great place if you want to see a bunch of flowers.
Right. And when he was over there, he was totally blown away by there being these big open fields with, like, windmills and stuff, and he was like, this is so crazy that there's something vastly different from the city he had been living in.
Exactly. And when you only have one perspective of things and you go to a new place, it's like, this is so weird. And especially just this, I mean, going from China to California is a major difference.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty significantly different.
Yeah, it is. And one thing I love about this game is every single frame could be your screensaver.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is... I just want to take one moment here to mention, like, what's going on the screen right now. And I think this fits into, like, what the game is doing.
Okay.
is when you complete a level, and I think this fits into the context of how it's like conveying what's going on.
All right.
Is that it says like take a break and just reflect on what's happened and what you just did.
Yeah. Now that's a really good way of putting it. And this does it really well of just like, all right, look at what you just did.
Yeah.
Look at the wonderful thing you've created. And you've brought life to this world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now the flower has bloomed. Because it's happy because it had a happy dream. But look at the place it's living.
And then, you know, as time goes on, city kind of upscales.
Changes and, you know, things get a little better.
Yeah.
Because, you know, industrialization.
Yeah. Industrialization has done a lot.
It has. It's done very good things and bad things. It's like with this, I mean, with industrialization, you can take a city that was small and decrepit and, you know, a new industry comes in and it can just boom the entire place.
Mm-hmm.
But then it can damage, you know, the land around it. It can make, you know, the slums of an area.
Yeah.
It is equally good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
And now we get a new flower. Where, you know, it grows up in a dark place and his dreams start out
Pretty dark.
pretty gray.
Yeah. Well, the other one, you know,
Had so much more hope.
yeah, like out there's something really amazing. There's something really cool.
Yeah, and like from my own perspective on how this works, I kind of feel like the first flower was like a country flower that was taken to the city.
Oh,
Which
okay.
is why it knows that everything can be green and grassy and lush.
Right.
And this one is more like, you know, it was like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old who gets taken from one place and moves to another. It's like, you know, it kind of has an idea, but it really has no clue.
Right, it remembers the vague idea that somewhere out there, there's something that's not this city.
Exactly, and now it's more like, I remember there was something that was like really open.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, now you're just bringing life into this dream and what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And then, you know, you start to fill it in, like, with these different ideas. Like, it starts off open and, you know, it's still kind of cold because that's what it's familiar with. And then the dream starts to unfold a little bit as he imagines, well, what could there be?
Exactly, and then it just keeps going, and it's just like, oh, there's bright colors, and then you, the player, are the one basically sort of using this paintbrush of petals to bring color back to this world.
Yeah. I think it's definitely worth mentioning that this game is, you know, and maybe it doesn't need to be mentioned that this game is abstract.
Just a little. When the main menu isn't really a menu.
Right. But this game is abstract, and so it asks, I think, a fair bit of the player to, like, have your own personal input.
Yeah.
Into, like, how you interpret this.
Exactly, like, there's a lot of ways you can interpret this, as well as ways you can play. I mean, you could just kind of, like, speed through it and do whatever, and ignore some of the... This thing has side objectives.
Right.
But there's no, like, it's not going to tell you, hey, this is what you should do. It's just like, we're going to give you nudges.
Yeah.
But, like, to progress it, you're eventually going to have to do some things. They don't specifically say, do this. Now go do this. And there are secret flowers all over this place.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot going on where, you know, it's up to you to find and explore.
Exactly. And, like, it does that with the trophies in this system, too. Like, there's one where you don't play, I think it was like for 2 weeks, and if you come back, you get a trophy.
Yeah.
For just coming back after 2 weeks. It's just like, you've had a nice break, welcome back.
Yeah.
And, like, that kind of, for me, is more like moderation.
Right.
They're, like, things are great.
Yes.
However, moderation is really important. You can't just indulge yourself in one thing over and over and over again.
Correct.
That is very unhealthy.
Yeah. You're going to be in for a bad time.
Exactly. I mean, anything can be taken to the extreme. And that's not a good thing.
True.
Ooh. All the blues and the purples.
Yeah, I really like how this, like we said, this is that like flower dreaming, and this is when it starts to get a little more creative. Of like, well, if I don't know what it's like out there, why couldn't there be vast fields of blue and purple?
Exactly. Like, I don't know what color grass is supposed to be, so why couldn't there be blue? I mean, people talk of bluegrass.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Why not have a grass that's blue?
Yeah, no, that seems reasonable.
I mean, it's the same like when you have a kid draw something for you, and it's like, here's a picture of a cat, and they start drawing the cat like green.
Right.
And they're just like, why is the cat green? It's like, why can't the cat be green?
Right, yeah, why?
It's like, he doesn't know any better.
Yeah, why wouldn't the cat be green?
Exactly. There's no reason for it not to be green.
Mm-hmm.
Grass is green. Why can't a cat be green?
Yeah. Cats live on grass.
Exactly. I mean, they'll sometimes eat it.
Yeah. If you are what you eat, therefore.
Therefore, it is green.
Yeah.
But it's eating grass. No, it's eating the green. Like, what's her name? From Adventure Time. Who eats red? Marceline.
Yes.
Yeah, she's a vampire. They eat the color red.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. Man, this is a pretty game.
It is a very pretty game. Yeah. It's it's really cool. I really like it.
Yeah.
I really like that as part of the way this game presents things. And I've sort of already touched on it, this idea of, you know, there's a certain amount up to the player to, like, sort of fill in, like, what you're, like, I guess how you're feeling or expecting this game to be.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, part of, like, it's reflected in what the flower is dreaming as well. Like, you both have these expectations of what could be here, and then, you know, all of a sudden, even if you're thinking, well, grass is green, and then it starts to say, well, why can't grass be blue?
Or purple.
Or purple, then it's like, well, why can't grass be blue or purple?
Exactly, and I really like games that kind of take your expectations and throw them sideways.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, gamers have a lot of expectations.
Right.
Like, it's like, when this happens, this happens. I mean, we've all been programmed for that for such a long time.
Correct.
And, like, you go into a game, you're expected to be told what to do, how to do it, where to go.
Yes.
And that's the game.
Yeah.
This one is more like, alright, here's some petals. You could go that way if you want to. I mean, or you could go explore this area.
Yeah.
Or you could do this secret objective.
Yeah.
Or you could do some other things.
Yeah.
So,
you can sort of just let your dream go, and, you know, you'll fill in a lot of wonderful things. And I think that's really the perspective to have about this game, is that, like, since you said that this is a flower's dream, that's definitely opened my eyes to the potential here of this is a dream. This has the potential to be so much more than, you know,
than the flower itself.
Right.
And then, like, some people are like, oh, it's a dream. You could do anything. Like you said. At the same time, like, it is a flower.
Right.
So it only has so much it can dream, but at the same time, it's a flower's dream.
Right.
You're already playing in a flower's dream. You can make it be anything you want.
Right. Exactly.
And, like, this is just such an amazing game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's your favorite game of all time.
It is my favorite game of all time.
Why?
Why is it my favorite game of all time?
Yeah. I love the blue.
So it's probably partially that of a lot of things, it doesn't tell me, like, how to feel or what to think. It just sort of says, like, here is this, do what you will with it, and, like, you know, it leads you on to certain conclusions. Like, it's saying, you know, follow this path, go here, and maybe you'll find something. But it doesn't tell you, like, it doesn't tell you why you should do that.
No.
Or, like, what you'll gain out of it. It's just, you know, do, be, find, and, you know, here, like, we get a paint. It just says, like, here's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you can do with what you want to, and...
Yeah, and it's just like how, hey, the objective is over here. We're gonna like just swoop the camera over there.
Right.
However, you also see that little halo of an undone flower over there. So you can totally go over there and do it.
Yeah.
And now you're like acting as a paintbrush, a golden paintbrush, and painting all this grass.
Yeah, it's a very literal opportunity to say, why can't the grass be something?
Gold.
Yeah, why can't the grass be gold?
Exactly, and it's like, why can't the wind be a paintbrush?
Yeah.
Why can't you paint with all the colors of the wind? That song almost had no meaning to me until I played Flower.
And now it has much meaning.
And now I'm like, I get it.
Yeah. And then as you, like this level in particular, as you express your creativity.
Yeah,
like
it changes the landscape.
Yeah.
Or, well, the color of the landscape.
Yeah, like the world can adapt to like what you hope and aspire and dream it could be.
Exactly. I mean, you were painting things gold. Now you're painting them pink.
Yeah.
And you can just go around and collect different colors and find all the secret things.
Yeah.
And it's just, oh, it's such a wonderful game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, it starts getting a little darker. Even like before when we finished it, it was super bright and colorful.
Yeah.
And now the middle part is like not as bright as colorful as the first one.
Yeah, no, I mean the grass here still looks like it's kind of alive.
Yeah.
But it's not as green and lush and vibrant as the previous grass had been.
Exactly. But man, is that not a pretty screensaver?
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad that we're capturing this because now I can just take this, turn it into a screensaver for my computer.
Yeah.
And it's so good.
Mm-hmm. And then as you like, I also like this, that as you explore, as you find, as you like input your creativity and search out things, like, life blossoms more.
Exactly, and the more you do, the more you get out of it. And now it's just like, hey, now it's like the city's grown even more.
Yeah.
And as you discover the little objectives that they don't even tell you about in the game, you get these little petals that just kind of like float down into the thing.
Mm-hmm.
That aren't even the same color as anything else.
Yeah.
Looks like a cherry blossom feather.
It kind of does. I mean, it's not on a tree.
Oh, no.
But it's kind of got that color to it.
Yeah. I mean, pink.
Yeah. Pink. It's a color.
It is. It's lightish red. Now we've got the city. It's like, things are a little brighter. Trees are there. It's not nearly as decrepit as it was before.
Right. Everything seems a little warmer and a little brighter. Like, this flower's all like, hey, maybe... Like, I've already seen light and hope here in the city.
Yeah.
So
then what's going on with the field? And now it's like, oh, now we have our first, like, man-made structure.
Yeah.
It's like, alright, well, why can't, like, city, like, nature and industrial, like, work together?
Yeah.
And be together. I mean, these windmills, like, these power generating windmills are just like hanging out with nature.
Yeah.
Like they're not imposing themselves. They're just kind of there.
Yeah. They're just they're very unobtrusive and they're a part of like at this point, they're not exactly a part of nature, but they're pretty well integrated into it.
Exactly.
And without like, excess harm.
Exactly. And like that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
Where we can have, we could work with nature and have structures there that aren't immediately, like overtaking it and trying to destroy it.
Mm-hmm.
And that works really well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, any last words on context?
On context.
Yeah. Before we move into meaning.
No, I think we covered it pretty well. The main context is this is a dream. It's a little abstract, and it's It's sort of set up as, I guess, almost like an outsider hoping for or imagining something out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like taking city flowers and giving them dreams of the countryside.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and that you join us next week, where we'll cover meaning.
Yeah.
And feel free to check out the rest of our channel. We got some awesome stuff in there for you.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of good stuff.
Heck yeah. All right, we'll see you all next time.
Bye.